Hello guys, my name is Amar and I welcome you to the brand new series of Spring Framework tutorial. Spring Framework is an open source lightweight framework created by Rod Johnson in the year 2003. It was created by using a design pattern of dependency injection. Okay. Now here I have written a short note regarding what is Spring Framework. As you can see, Spring is open source lightweight framework for building Java application easily and quickly. It can be considered as framework of framework because it supports various frameworks like Hibernate, Struts, JSF, EJB, etc. This framework is modular, consisting of 20 modules. Due to its modular nature, we can work only with the modules required for our project and rest modules can be ignored. This framework was developed by Rod Johnson in 2003 by using the design principle dependency injection, and later on Spring team added more features as separate modules. At the time of recording this video, the current version of Spring is 5.2.8. Okay. Now why Spring is so popular? Due to the design pattern of dependency injection, because the dependency injection design pattern makes the Spring classes loosely coupled, and as a result the testability and the maintainability of the Spring application becomes very easy. Okay. Now we need to understand what is the meaning of IOC, DI and IOC container. Now these are generic terms, not specific to any programming language. It can be used with any programming language. Okay. Now what is inversion of control? Inversion of control is the design principle where the control flow of the program is inverted. Here control refers to additional responsibility of a class like control over the flow of application. Now what is the meaning of control over the flow of application? Let me give you an example. Suppose you are creating a GUI application where you have two text box and there is a button. What you want is that you will provide the values to the text box, and after that you will click on the button and you will get the sum of those two numbers, right? Now whenever you will click on the button, how the event will be generated, how the event will be propagated to the operating system, that is not the developer's part. Okay, that part is handled by the GUI framework. This means that extra responsibility of generating the event or communicating with the operating system is not written in the class which you have created. That will be handled by the GUI framework. Okay, that is the control over the flow of application. Next we have or control over the dependent object creation. Here it means that, suppose, let me give you an example. Suppose here there are two classes, class A and class B. Okay. Now you want that the object of class B will be used in class A. Now that part means the object creation part. This means you are not responsible to create the object of class B in the class A directly. That object creation part will be handed over to some third party framework. Okay. That point I have written here. Or control over the dependent object creation means the dependent object will not be created by you or by the developer. Actually it will be handed over to some third party framework. Okay. Now if you don't create the object here itself by writing like this, then these two classes will be loosely coupled. If you are creating the object directly here, then these two classes are tightly coupled. But if you are not creating the object here, this means these two classes will be loosely coupled and the testability and the maintainability of the code will be increased. Okay. Now this inversion of control, that is the design principle, can be implemented by using different techniques like event, delegates, dependency injection, service locator. Okay. Next we have dependency injection. As I told you, dependency injection is a design pattern which is used to implement the inversion of control. Okay. With dependency injection, we can create the dependent objects outside the class and provide the object to the class by using constructor injection, property injection or method injection. In Spring framework, only constructor injection and property injection is supported. Okay. And what is IOC container? IOC container is a framework which is used to implement the automatic dependency injection. As I told you, the object creation part, the dependent object creation part will be assigned to some third-party framework. Okay, that third-party framework is nothing but the IOC container, which will manage the object, means object creation. Maintaining the life cycle of the object will be managed by this IOC container. Okay, and it will inject the object to the class, right? Now, what is the advantages of Spring framework? Spring framework is lightweight. It allows us to develop applications with POJO, means plain old Java object, and does not force the programmer to extend or implement any class or interface, and so it is called to be non-invasive. Now, if you know struts, then you know, then in case of struts, it is required to use the action interface. Okay, but if you are creating the Spring application, then it is not required to extend or implement any predefined interface or class. Okay, loose coupling, as I told you that Spring framework is built with the design pattern dependency injection, and hence the Spring classes are loosely coupled, and since the Spring classes are loosely coupled, we can easily test them, right? Next we have modular. As I told you, Spring framework is modular. It consists of 20 modules, but for your project we can only choose those modules which is required. Rest modules can be easily ignored. Next we have predefined templates. Now Spring provide predefined templates for JDBC, Hibernate, etc. Now since we are using predefined templates, then developer is not required to write the code for creating the connection, closing the connection. Okay, these will be handled by the predefined templates. The developers are required to write only the query. Okay, integration with other frameworks, as I told you, it can be used with different frameworks. Okay, like Struts, EJB, Hibernate, etc. Spring provides Spring MVC framework, with which we can create a web application by using the MVC design pattern. Okay, now here in this slide, I will discuss Spring framework modules. Now, as I told you that Spring has 20 modules. These modules are grouped actually. As you can see, this test is a module. Core container. In the core container, we have core, beans, context and expression language. For the data access integration, we have JDBC, ORM, OXM, JMS, transaction. In case of web, we have WebSocket, Servlet, Web, Portlet, and in the miscellaneous section we have AOP, aspects, instrumentation, messaging. Okay, all these modules I will discuss. Now the first one, that is the test module. Test supports for testing with JUnit and testng. This test module, with the help of this test module, we can test our Spring applications with the help of JUnit or testng. Okay. Core container. In the core container we have core. It provides key part of the framework, which includes dependency injection and inversion of control. Bean. Now here let me tell you one thing, that whenever I will tell bean, bean is actually the Java object. Okay. Now this bean will be responsible for creating and managing the Spring beans. This means this beans, which is a part of core container, will be responsible for creating and managing Spring beans, means Spring objects. Context. It allows us to access any object defined in the setting. In the setting means actually in the Spring configuration file. Key element is application context interface. Now all these things will be discussed or elaborated to you as I will proceed. Okay. SPEL. It provides expression language for manipulation objects at runtime. Next we have web. Web provides functionalities creating web applications, downloading files, REST API, etc. Web MVC provides Spring MVC implementation for the web applications. WebSocket provides communication between client and server by WebSocket. Web Portlet provides MVC implementation in Portlet environment. All these modules I will discuss. Okay, here just I have given you the overview, right? Next we have data access. In case of data access, we have JDBC, provides abstract layer for JDBC, which allows developer to avoid writing boilerplate code. As I told you, it is not required to write the code for creating the connection, closing the connections. This boilerplate code, it is not required to write. Okay. ORM provides integration with ORM, object relation mapping. Okay. OXM, it is responsible for Java object and XML mapping. It supports for different OXM frameworks like JAXB, Castor, etc. JMS, that is Java Messaging Service, it is responsible for creating and consuming messages. Transaction, it supports transaction management for classes that implement special interfaces. And in the miscellaneous section, we have AOP. AOP supports implementation of aspect-oriented programming, where we can use advices, point cuts to decouple the code. Aspects provides integration with Aspect-J. It is another AOP framework. Instrumentation provides class instrumentation support and class loader implementation, which is used in application servers. Messaging, it provides STOMP, means simple or streaming text oriented message protocol. Okay, all these things may sound harder to you, but these things will be more clear once I will show you how to write programs by using these things. Okay, this means these modules will be more clear to you once I will proceed in my upcoming videos. Okay, that's it. Now, if you like my video, please subscribe to my channel, share my videos. Okay, thank you so much.